Yeah, and you mentioned switching and things like that. Again, another category here for me that we've seen emerge in the last decade is the switch hunting, right? That wasn't something that was super common even in just the 2000s. That sort of era that preceded this once they opened up the freedom of movement rules in 2005. So in this last 7, 8, 9 playoffs, we see if you're a weak spot on the floor, we're going to bring you up. I think of the Celtics defense with this, where they've had a small that they could target for the last couple postseasons, whether it's Kemba Walker, Kyrie Irving before that, Isaiah Thomas before that. And in the playoffs, if you go after those guys, and sometimes bigs are put in these situations, we mentioned Steph and Draymond's pick and roll. Just we're going to bring Jokic up every time, and we're going to make it real fun for you because we're going to start that screen 40 feet away. So you have to decide how you want to handle Steph Curry coming downhill. So there's a lot of different ways to do this. Celtics defense now, of course, this year doesn't have that small guy. Like Marcus Smart is the guy. So I don't know how you attack them. It's a pretty they're looking like they could possibly be a historically great defense depending on what happens in the next few rounds. But yeah, the mismatch hunting and the switch hunting to me falls in this category where you just wouldn't see that quite as much in the regular season.
Yeah, and it gets amplified in the playoffs because the schemes are so good, you have to find the weakest spot almost every time, right? Or at least involve it every single time. And so I was talking about this. I was doing a couple of the live streams on the new playback app where I was talking to him last night against Cousins, where people make a big deal about like DeMarcus Cousins. He's big. He's scoring points. I think he scored 20 something last night. His playoff career high, which is insane. I would have never guessed that like 21 was his playoff career high. I think it was 19 was his career high. But they were like, yeah, DeMarcus Cousins, he's big. He's a force down there. He's scoring what he wants. What are the Warriors going to do? And it's like the Warriors going to score 3 points on the other end. Like, are we not watching the same game? Like, he can't defend.
Yep.
I mean, he kept him afloat and he kept him alive, but like the mismatch like that doesn't get always brought up because what the Warriors would do is they would involve him in just like a basic pin down. And then it'd hit the roller because he has to play at the level and so high up. Then the roller would hit somebody else, and then they'd end up in the third or fourth cut. And so DeMarcus Cousins isn't getting scored on directly, but he was the reason that the advantage was created that led all the dominoes to the layup, right? So the mismatch and the hunting can be more than just I'm going to involve you in a ball screen one-on-one. Let's go, right? It can be we're going to bring Jokic up. And then when he switches or hedges, Steph's going to get off it, right? Whether it's a kick to the wing, a hit the roller, we're just going to pull him out. So now they have zero rim protection, right? Because Jokic is a pretty good positional defender. I like his defense at the rim. I think he's got great hands. Like he bothers people. But if you pull out Gordon and Jokic, who's Gordon's guarding Steph and Jokic is guarding Draymond, and they go that ball screen, now you don't even have to attack it one-on-one. You've just pulled their two biggest rim protection assets off the three-point line, right? They're out of the play almost. So now you're playing even 3-on-3 with those other guys, and you got Poole and Clay going downhill, Wiggins attacking mismatches. It's not just a direct ball screen that they can hunt. It's just even pulling those guys out stretches the defense and takes any rim protection away.
I'm so glad you mentioned the sort of multi-layers to that element because I feel like Harden and to some degree LeBron made this really popular in the mainstream, realizing like, oh, they're in these playoff series and they're just literally pointing at the corner and saying like, go get me the weakest, smallest guy so I can isolate against him. But this is the category, right? It's going after mismatches or switches and ball screens, and then the defense has to react to that in some way. They send two guys to the dribbler. Then you get stuff like Draymond's short roll killing you. And if you're not paying attention, you don't realize that's because they brought that DeMarcus Cousins or whoever this weak defensive big up is. And their best answer is we're going to play 4-on-3 behind the play. That's their best answer.
Thanks for listening. You can find the full episode of This Thinking Basketball podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you enjoy podcasts.